Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie Living. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie yet, you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So, Living is an adaptation of Akira Kurosawa's movie Ikiru, and it's about a man who finds out he has terminal cancer, only about 6 months or so to live, and the changes he makes to his life once he realizes that his life is coming to an end. So as far as what I liked about the movie, the cast overall was great. I loved Bill Nighy as the main character. He gave a very restrained, very subtle kind of performance, but it was also very heartbreaking and moving, and I really enjoyed it. I was really impressed with Amy Lou Wood in this. I mostly know her from a TV show called Sex Education, which is she's good on, but she plays kind of a dumb character. So seeing her play this character, and she doesn't, to me, looks very kind of modern, doesn't really have a classic kind of 50s look, but she pulled it off in this, and she was actually really good in this. I liked her a lot. I also like Tom Burke and Alex Sharp as a couple of guys who worked with him. Yeah, overall, cast was all really, really good. And another thing I was really impressed by in this movie was the cinematography. Thought it was really beautiful. I know it's sort of become a cliche to say like every frame should look like a painting or something like that, but I really think in this movie it does. Like I was really blown away and impressed by how beautiful everything was. Cinematography was done by a guy named Jamie D. Ramsey. He's worked with this director Oliver Hermanus a lot. All of his other movies, or most of his other movies, like Mafi and Beauty and Shirley Adams. And he also did the movie See How They Run, which I really liked. And he was the documentary unit on District 9. So, yeah, beautiful cinematography in this. Really liked it. Thought he did a really great job. I also really liked the sort of grainy quality of the original title shots when they're showing the movie come in. It looks like a movie from the 50s. And I assume in a lot of ways they were recreating the original movie, which I have not seen. So I can only speak of what I've read about it. I also really liked the lighting in this. I think it added to the cinematography. A lot of it seemed maybe natural. I'm not sure, but there was a lot of bright light coming through windows. I'm assuming they supplemented that with some other light sources as well. But yeah, the lighting in this just beautiful and just amazing shots and cinematography. The shadows, the way everything fell, and the way everything looked. Really, honestly, one of the most beautiful movies I've seen. And I know people said that about like Spider-Verse, which I can see why that movie is visually very spectacular, or Avatar, again, very spectacular. This is a very subtle and understated, but also just really beautiful. One of the best looking movies I've ever seen. I really was really impressed by it. I really like the font and the typeface on the opening titles as well. Again, the very 1950s style, probably, again, I assume similar to the original ones. But yes, very much as I'm watching this, I'm going, wait, this is a modern movie, right? I saw Amy Lee Wood's name in the credits. I'm like, okay, I'm good. But yeah, if I didn't know that, I would have been like, wait, no, I put on the wrong movie here. This movie's from the 50s. I really liked the opening shots of the train yard. I thought that was just, again, really well shot. They sort of have these overhead shots of the train crossing, and just the way everything looked was just really, really beautiful. And anything on the train, honestly, just looked amazing. I really liked all the train stuff. There's also a transition later in the movie where they're driving and they're in the train. It's very cold. You can see the cold and the snow through the window. And then at some point, the train kind of passes through sort of a group of trees, but it's already kind of through. But it transitions from this cold, wintry, cold, dark kind of white area to this, colorful, beautiful kind of thing to sort of let you know now it's springtime. This winter has passed. And I thought that was a really cool way to convey the passage of time, but also just looked really amazing. And again, relatively low budget here. They weren't working with, Avatar money or anything. I really liked the lighting in this. I think I said that before. Thought the music was really good as well. It was done by a woman named Emily Levanaz Farouche. I have no idea. I looked at some of her other movies. She's done stuff called like Rocks and Censor, which I believe she was nominated for British awards for, but I've never seen them. But yeah, I really like the music in this. I thought it really added a lot to it, and very classical, very kind of a lot of violins and pianos and kind of orchestra type stuff. But yeah, loved it. Thought it was great. I like the humor in this. The humor is very subtle, and this is obviously not really a comedy by any means, but I love British humor. I watch a fair amount of British like panel shows mostly, but there's something about the subtlety and the sort of understatedness of the humor, just a lot of these situations, just because I don't know, I guess with England, especially in the 50s, people were just so reserved and so quiet and just so afraid to kind of speak out or rock the boat or do anything like that. So a lot of the humor comes from those kind of situations, and I really enjoyed it. There's a scene where Amy Lou Wood's character, Miss Harris, is telling her the nicknames she has for the different people in the office. I thought that was really funny. There's also a scene where he decides he wants to get the park built, and the guy's like, okay, well, you'll have to come back later. And he's like, no, I'll wait. And just like the reactions that, and knowing how much of a stir that would cause, something very simple that in America, especially nowadays, who cares? But back then, big deal, kind of the fact that he's just putting himself on the line and his reputation that he'd built up to do this thing was really cool. I really enjoyed that. Overall, the story, great. I kind of went into it a little bit there, but basically he realizes he's going to die. And then after kind of going around and doing a couple things, he ends up deciding to help these women build this park for these kids to kind of as part of his legacy. That's great. That's awesome. I really loved it. And as soon as the kind of women came up and said they want to have this park, I'm like, if this movie ends up being that he's going to help him build this park, that's amazing. I love it already. And yeah, it was. And that's great. Maybe a little predictable, but still can't really fault it for that. I really like the song that he sings in this called The Rowan Tree. I hadn't heard it before, but yeah, the first time especially he goes up to sing it, I thought it was just heartbreaking and really beautiful. A really great song. At first I was kind of like, what is this? But as I got into it, and really because of his performance, Bill Nighy's performance there, it was great. I liked that there wasn't any kind of romance between him and Miss Harris. I was worried that there was going to be. I was fairly sure there wouldn't be, but I was a little worried, and I'm glad there wasn't. If there were, that would have been terrible. It would have kind of ruined the movie for me, so I'm very glad that wasn't there. And it does get addressed at some point. She's like, hey, people might start to think something, But honestly, even if it wouldn't have been addressed and this was some weird fantasy world where everyone was fine with it, I would have been okay with that as well. But yeah, I like that a lot. I also sort of like there's this part at the end where they're sitting on the train and they're talking about how he died and how the work he put in to build this park, and kind of debating whether or not he really deserves the accolades and the credit that they're giving him. They kind of decide that he does. And then the one guy, Middleton, I think it is, says, let's make sure to do this from now on. No more passing the buck. We're gonna get stuff done. We're gonna do things the way that he would have wanted us to do them. And then not much later, we see him being put in that situation where he can do something and he doesn't. He decides not to. And the kid, I forget his name, Wakeling. Wakeling stands up and you wanted to say something and he doesn't. And I wish he would have. And in an American movie, I'm sure he probably would have. But in this, no, he didn't. And it kind of shows that, like, yeah, we might have the best intentions. And in the moment when something happens, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm never going to do this again. But it's so easy to let apathy, or whatever, laziness, malfeasance, I don't know, slip in, status quo, kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed that it wasn't too nice, although I would have been fine with the guy being like, no, remember what you said, and then being like, okay, you're right. But either way, that really worked. I enjoyed that. And I really liked the playground that worked. Not only did they build the playground and it's there, but also that it sort of served as a symbol to what you can do and what one person can do, but also like helping kids out, helping out the community. And he even kind of says in his letter that, like, this is something that's not going to stand forever, but like, we should make the effort to, I actually forgot what he said, but it was great. I liked it a lot. So really good, really, really sweet, really nice movie. And I love the ending. I loved, again, you see him kind of sitting on the swing. And at first I thought they were doing some weird ghost thing. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? But no, luckily they weren't doing that. That was just a nice moment to see him happy, to see that he got to enjoy the fruits of his labor, and to know that, he would at least have somewhat of a legacy for a little while. And not only that, but he inspired others, hopefully, to continue to do the same. So yeah, really great message, and I really, really enjoyed it. He dies about an hour into the movie, and I'm looking at it going like, wait, we have a half hour left. What's going on here? And I'm really glad they went back and kind of each character goes through and explains an interaction they had with him that kind of showed that, like, no, he really did put a lot of work into doing this. And that was really, really great. I really enjoyed it. So as far as what I disliked about this movie, not much, honestly. I didn't love the sound mixing. I do have kind of an old sound setup here, so maybe I just need to update my receiver or whatever. But the music, as much as I liked it, was a little too loud for me sometimes. So I had to kind of, turn down the volume for the music and then turn it up for the dialogue. I can see how for some people the movie would be boring. And there was a part in the middle where I started to get just a little bored. And I can see for most people watching this, they would say, what is this? This is boring. I don't like this. And it's a little obvious. It's a little on the nose. Like, again, having the guy sitting there on the train saying, well, let's make sure to do what he says. And then again, they do kind of subvert that. So I did appreciate that. They made some changes to the Miss Harris character. Like I said, I haven't seen the original Kurosawa movie, but in that movie, she's a woman named Toyo, I believe, and she gets a job at a toy factory. And then that's what inspires him to make the playground, at least from what I understand. I don't know if the women's auxiliary or whatever is involved at all. And so I guess I didn't understand that change, like, because then she ends up getting a job she doesn't like. And so does she eventually get a job she likes? And also, why take that sort of agency or that catalyst that she provided and take that away from her? I don't know. Again, I haven't seen the movie. I should definitely watch it. What happened to the writer? So early on, he meets this writer and he gives him his drugs and they have a good time and they have a good night and everything else. Cool. And then he's gone now. I think he was at the funeral, maybe, but like that's it. Okay, that's fine. And that happens in real life, but just like, he's a cool character. Wouldn't mind seeing more from him. How much time did Wakeling take to read that letter? It seemed like I couldn't quite tell how much time had passed there, but like, it seems like the kind of thing you'd want to read pretty quickly, right? I don't know. And the romance, there's sort of a romance between him and Miss Harris, I believe. It's a little tacked on, which I was fine with it. It was cute and it was well done. And the way they shot it was all very nice. But it was just a little like, well, here's two characters around the same age. You got to have them get together. And I feel like they could have done it a little more interesting. They could have had I actually don't remember Bill Nighy's character's name. They could have had the main character, whatever his name is, actually kind of be a little more involved in getting the two of them together. That could have been interesting. I don't know. But for me to write this any better. So other than that, movie was directed by a guy named Oliver Hermanus. He's a South African guy. He's done a bunch of movies that I have not seen. Shirley Adams, Beauty, The Endless River, Mafi, all sounded pretty interesting. A lot of them seem to deal with gay themes. He's a gay guy. He's a gay person, so that's not that surprising. But yeah, definitely worth checking out, I think. This adaptation was, of course, based on the Akira Kurosawa movie, but this adaptation was written by Kazuo Ishiguro, who is most famous for writing the novels Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, both of which were adapted into movies, which were, fairly successful and well received from what I remember. Like I said, it's a remake of Ikiru, which is one of Akira Kurosawa's movies. He's a very famous director, probably one of the most influential directors of all time, highly regarded, especially of that time period. Of anyone who was making films worships him. I mostly know him for Rashomon and The Magnificent Seven, and I think most people probably know as well. If you haven't seen The Magnificent Seven, you've maybe seen the Seven Samurai, which is remade as Magnificent Seven as a cowboy movie. So yeah, if you haven't seen Seven Samurai, you've probably seen Magnificent Seven or the Mandalorian episode that was based on that. And Rashomon, same thing. If you haven't seen it, you've probably seen things based on it. It basically, that movie is telling a story from different characters' perspectives. So I've seen that in a bunch of different sitcoms doing sort of references to that and stuff. But I don't really know the rest of his movies. This one came out right in between those two. So this definitely inspired me to watch more, and I've always been meaning to, but it gave me even more reason to watch more Akira Kurosawa movies. So I definitely would like to do that. This movie, though, Ikiru, or Living, was also based on a Tolstoy novel novella called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. I have not read that either, but I did read sort of the summary of it. It sounds like there's a decent amount of changes. In that one, he's still married and he injures himself trying to hang a curtain rod or something, I think. But the overall themes are very similar. There's also some stuff in this that reminded me of like Parks and Rec, the TV show Parks and Rec, because the main thing of that first season, at least the first half or the first couple seasons, is trying to build a park for kids. So I was like, hey, that's kind of an interesting. I wonder if they did that on purpose or not. Possibly. Yeah. There's also an episode of The Simpsons where Homer eats a blowfish that kind of reminded me of this. I'm sure there's been a lot of other things. Kurosawa was a very influential director, but there's something else and I can't remember what it was. But while watching it, going, oh, hey, that's a little bit like that thing too. I really liked, I mentioned before, the song that Bill Nighy sings, The Rowan Tree. Apparently, the screenwriter, Kazuo Ishiguro's wife, really loved that song. He wrote it into the script. And then the director, Oliver Hermanus, didn't really like it and didn't think it was very cinematic. So they had to kind of take the song and give it to the musician, I forgot her name, Emily Lebanese Farouche, and she kind of reworked it and they made it into the song. I like that. I actually really like the song. Apparently Ishiguro, again, the screenwriter, really wanted Bill Nighy in this for a long time. And then one time after a party, they shared a cab and he approached him about it. Bill Nighy said, I've never seen the original Kurosawa movie. He watched it, liked it, and they decided to make the movie together. I did think a bit because this is a British remake, and I thought a lot of the British stuff, especially in the 50s, worked really well to like the Japanese stuff because they have a lot of similarities in terms of they're very kind of reserved and they're very into protocol and stuff like that, and not really wanting to stand out. And so I really appreciated that. I thought it transitioned pretty well from what I understand. But I can imagine like an American remake and it not working at all. I can imagine they'd have like Clint Eastwood as the old guy and Jack Black would be the writer, and it'd be all wacky and goofy. And at some point they'd have like I'm Walking on Sunshine thrown in there or something, and there'd be a happy ending, and then he'd kick some ass or whatever. So I'm sure America, Hollywood could do a decent remake, but that's just my initial thoughts, thinking like, yeah, I'm glad that this was a British remake and not an American remake, because I think it's a little easier to transition that way for me. Rotten Tomatoes, and this is great. Critics on this are 96%. The audience is 84%. So the audience doesn't like it quite as much, but almost everyone loves it. I did read through a little bit because I was curious to see what people didn't like about it. And most of the criticisms I saw were either that they didn't really like why do this adaptation of it, or they just thought it was boring. So I get that. But as far as it being boring, I totally understand people thinking that. But as far as why they did the remake, I think it's a good idea because I've not seen the original. So I'm at least one person who watched this because of it and now wants to watch the original and wants to watch more of Akira Kurosawa's movies. So it worked for me. Maybe I'm the only one, but hey, that's something. Movie had a $12 million budget. I couldn't figure out how much money it made. This is not the movie that's designed to make money, and they didn't spend a lot of money on it. 12 million is relatively low, so I'm sure it'll be fine, and I'm sure if they lose money, they'll be fine. It's more of a prestige movie. It came out in December of last year, and it got a couple of Oscar nominations, one for Adapted Screenplay and one for Best Actor. Apparently, that's something else they got there. Yeah, so Bill Nighy, of course, lost out to Brendan Fraser because it was his year. I actually think Nighy's performance is better than Fraser's, personally. And they lost out screenplay to Women Talking, I believe, which was another really good movie, so I can't really hold that against them either. But yeah, as far as my score on this movie, I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was really great, really amazing. Other than, like I said, maybe being a little boring and a little slow for some people. But for me personally, I didn't mind it at all. And I thought it was one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. And probably my favorite movie of the year so far. I realized it came out last year, but yeah, I think this is probably my favorite movie so far this year. So highly recommend it. I thought it was great. If you saw it, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. I will see you here again next week.